Now I am going to talk about a concept called functional finance, which is introduced by Professor A.P. Lerner. Keynesian revolution in economic thinking reconstituted the whole basis of public finance and affirmed functional finance as a physical norm in modern times. Though the lead in the development of functional finance concept was taken by Keynes, credit goes to Professor A.P. Lerner for coining this concept. Lerner puts that the principle of judging physical measures by the way they work or function in the economy we may call functional finance. He contends that the physical operation of the government, like taxing, borrowing, public spending, management of public debt, etc., are called deficit financing, etc., all should be designed with the objective of fulfilling certain functions which have an immediate bearing and far-reaching effect on the economic system as a whole. In economic philosophy, the term functional finance embraces public expenditure, public revenue, and debt management, which were regarded as the physical instrument effectively used to achieve objectives like attainment and maintenance of full employment with economic stability. As Professor Chilaya pointed out, that functional concept of fixed policy thus implies that the physical operation of the government should be conducted on a functional basis and public finance should not be considered as being induced solely by the need for securing social goods mean for collective consumption. The budget need not always be balanced. As a matter of fact, the physical norm of functional finance is the complete antithesis of the orthodox rule of balanced budget. The functional finance norm suggests that the formation of large budget with a wider functional coverage of government spending to promote basic economic goals, example, to obtain optimal allocation and efficient use of scarce resources at full employment level, to achieve economic stability and bring about an equitable distribution of income and wealth in the best possible manner. Quite contrary to the classical notion, the concept of functional finance policy suggests that the state need not and should not assume a passive role in the economic affairs of the country. It implies that public spending may be incurred not merely for the sake of its direct benefit, but for the sake of indirect effect it produces in the raising the level of income, output and employment. And the public revenue may be raised not to meet an anticipated expenditure, but to curtail excessive demand and curb inflationary potential in the economy. Taxation is thus regarded as an important and effective weapon in the hands of government to promote economic progress with stability. Lerner suggests the following rules for government's responsibility and activity under functional finance. The government budget should be directed towards the achievement of full employment and price stability. For this purpose, the government budget need not be necessarily be balanced. Second one, the government should incur public debt by borrowing money from the private sector only during the inflation when it is absolutely essential to mop up the excessive purchasing power from the public, thereby reducing the pressure of excess monetary demand. And the third functional finance responsibility is during depression only the public expenditure in excess of current public revenue may be met by deficit financing, that is printing additional currency notes. Let us discuss the role of functional finance under inflation. That is under the following heads. That is the first one, that is what is the most appropriate budget policy during this time. According to the policy of the functional finance, government should not adopt a balanced budget. During inflation, government should follow a surplus budget. By resorting to heavy taxation and extensive borrowing, the excess purchasing power in the economy should be neutralized. Therefore, the government should apply drastic cut in expenditure programs to deal with the inflationary force. All these measures should result in a surplus budget which act as an antidote during inflation. And the second one is related to government's expenditure policy. In inflationary situation in which aggregate effective demand increases too much due to unregulated private expenditure. To counter this increased private spending, government at such inflationary time should reduce its expenditure to the possible extent. All productive and wasteful expenditure should be minimized. And the third one is taxation policy. As an anti-inflationary weapon, taxation policy has much significance, and during inflationary period, the problem is to reduce the size of the disposable income. Hence, the taxation must be resorted to take away the excess purchasing power from the people. For this, the rate of existing tax should be increased steeply. Moreover, if needed, new taxes should be also can be introduced. Then the fourth one is related to public borrowing. The objective of public borrowing should be take away from the public excess purchasing power. The government can resort to voluntarily and if needed compulsory method to raise loans. Coupled with this, existing public debt should be managed in such a manner as to reduce the existing money supply to prevent credit expansion. Anti-inflationary debt management required the payment of bank-held debt out of a budget surplus. That is, during inflationary period, the government security should be repaid through budgetary surplus. These are the things that the functional finance can undertake during the inflationary period. And let us move on to the role of functional finance under deflationary or depression period. That is, again, we can use the same mechanism. That is what we can do with the budgetary policy. The budgetary policy of the government be geared to fight depression and unemployment. The need of the depression in an increased flow, increase the flow of income. This, according to Keynes, can only be realized through a deficit budget. Therefore, the government should spend more than its ordinary revenue collection. The deficit incurred should be met either by borrowing from the bank through printing of currency, the injection of more money into circulation with stimulate private spending and economic recovery. In this context, once Professor Gunnar Myrdal remarked that under-balancing the budget during depression is not primarily a deliberate policy but a practical necessary. Hence, an anti-inflationary tool is a deficit budget is a very welcome one. Then the second mechanism is the taxation policy. As an anti-depressionary depression policy, fiscal policy should aim at increasing both consumption and investment expenditure. For realizing this objective, taxation policy can render valuable help to the government. Taxation policy in depression, according to Keynes, should be designed to stimulate both consumption and investment. This can be achieved by reducing the burden of taxation on the community. Commodity taxation should be reduced to the possible extent to stimulate the consumption. Moreover, reduction in excise duty, sales tax, etc. all help to increase the propensity to consume of the community. Coupled with this, to boost investment, business and corporate tax should be slashed down in order to increase the consumption during deflation. And the third mechanism, that is government expenditure policy. The deficiency in effective demand during depression can be mitigated through increased public expenditure. Public expenditure, according to Keynes, is a best anti-depression tool to recover the economic activity. And the fourth mechanism is public debt policy. During depression, the government should resort to a deficit budget. The deficit cost in the government budget should be met particularly or wholly by the borrowed money. That is, public borrowing should be resorted during deflation to meet the budget deficit. However, in order to keep up the burden of public debt low, the government should aim at a policy of low interest rate during depression. The government should also try to borrow from those sections of population with whom the funds are laying idle. In short, the main tenet of the functional finance is the formation of unbalanced budget from the time to time for perfecting the counter-cyclical goal of fiscal policy. A surplus budget is recommended during inflation and a deficit budget for recovering through excessive public spending during a deflation or a depression period. Therefore, functional finance thus deliberately aims at unbalancing the budget with a view to attaining and maintaining full employment level in a developed economy. In an underdeveloped economy, however, the main problem is not one of full employment but that that of rapid economic growth. In a developing economy, thus the functional aspect of fiscal policy is to be conceived in the context of a planned process of economic development. Thank you.